Kia ora koutou. Ke te whakarongo mai koutou ki Arrow FM, te reo irirangi o Wairarapa, and this is Isolation Blues. And we have a guest this morning, and look, I can see she's already there. Good morning, Anna.
Good morning, Michael.
This is Anna Nielsen, of course, from Destination Wairarapa, sitting there in her home bubble. How are you coping with your isolation?
I'm going really well. I mean, you look out the window and just appreciate that if we have to be in a bubble somewhere, might as well be in the beautiful Wairarapa.
Always on the job, promoting the Wairarapa. And you've been continuing the activities of Destination Wairarapa remotely amongst your staff, right?
Yes, correct.
Yeah. Well, I've been popping in on a daily basis, carrying my bubble with me and watching the newspapers pile up outside your door. We're roomies, by the way, where we share an office space with Destination Wairarapa, and we really enjoy spending time with them. We miss you.
Oh, we miss you too.
Yeah, right. Now, tell us about, amongst the numerous things that you're promoting and developing, tell me a little bit about the Love Local campaign.
Yeah, first of all, I should probably just explain what Destination Wairarapa actually is. Some people probably are not familiar with the organisation. We are the Regional Tourism Office, or RTO as they're called, and we also run the two iSites in the region. So the iSite in Masterton and there's one in Martinborough. Our role is we work with tourism operators in the region to essentially help them maximise their income. That's, of course, a very simplified description of what we do, but really that comes down to the crux of it. Who is a tourist? I think there's some confusion here about what a tourist actually is. I think people see tourism as big buses coming through the region with lots of people on them. It's not actually. Anyone who comes into the region temporarily and spends money here is a tourist, so a visitor, which could be, any one of those people on a bus. But it also
just
could
day
be
trippers from Wellington.
That's right. It could be Auntie Jill. It could be the cousins coming over for the school holidays. It's anyone who's bringing money from outside of the region, bringing it into our region and spending it on our goods and services here.
Right.
Then that comes to the question is who is in tourism in the Wairarapa? Again, people automatically go to accommodation providers. A hotel, that's an obvious choice. It's also down to hospitality, so all our cafes, bars, restaurants. Events is another obvious one. Transport companies. You may not also consider petrol stations, but of course people are purchasing petrol when they're coming in and going out. It's all the retailers. It's the pools, the movie theatres, attractions, cellar doors. But there's also an indirect business component that's connected to tourism, which is, of course, the supermarkets, wholesalers, food and beverage suppliers who supply the restaurants, bars and cafes. It's the laundry service who launders all the sheets and tablecloths for all those accommodation providers, restaurants, bars and cafes. It's even the grain company that supply the grains, that feed the chickens, that lay the eggs, that get delivered to the cafe and restaurants and end up on the plate of a tourist's eggs benny for breakfast. The point is, actually, we are all in tourism in one way or another in the Wairarapa. So
I'm really glad you did explain that because I make a presumption that people know what Destination Wairarapa is, but that's really useful to have you explain it more fully.
Yeah, it's interesting because of COVID, I guess all of a sudden we've got a much more focused lens on the Wairarapa and what we do and how we do it. And there is a lot of confusion out there, which the old saying around assuming something. I assumed that people knew what we did and who we were and who the people we looked after was, and we're our marketers, and that was has become evident. So I thought it was well worthwhile just to make it clear where we fit into the bigger picture of things. But I guess the thing is, when lockdown happened, and all forms of tourism, so remember what tourism is all about, stopped immediately, dead in its tracks. The consequences were felt by our industry, or the direct industry players, so accommodation and hospitality, etc., immediately. But in the long term, it's going to be felt by a lot of regions and a lot of economies in the weeks and months to come as well. So, and this is a very long way around to get to your question about the Buy Local campaign, but it's just, I hope I'm providing a little bit of context here.
It's great. It's the scenic route.
The scenic route. I always like taking the scenic route because there's always lots of things that you missed or you haven't seen, or those little special elements that just make it all worthwhile. Anyway, we got to lockdown, and immediately we went, what are we going to do? This is disastrous. How are we going to recover from this? And one of the first things we actually did is start to change our words. And we went, yes, we've got to respond to this situation, but let's not use recovery, because tourism is not on the recovery table. We just need a kickstart or a restart. It's not that dire, I can assure you. We actually look pretty comfortable here in the Wairarapa, and I'll explain why in a minute. But we immediately kicked off the Love Local Wairarapa campaign, and it's to not only encourage locals to consider what and where and from whom they're buying, but we also hope that, when you choose the butcher down the road, people understand that that guy lives down the road, his kids are at your school, he's buying meat from the local region, so the local farmers. So when you buy product that's easily produced here in this region, that money goes back into the region, which is really important for us. The money that we can keep moving around this economy keeps people in jobs. And we also wanted to provide an easy directory on our website, so people knew where to look to find who could supply product during level 4. So that was the first step in the process, because a lot of people want to love local. They understand it, but trying to find out, while everyone's scrambling to understand what was going on, who could deliver fresh fruit and vegetables, who could deliver meat products, who could deliver whatever you need, bakery items, whatever it may be. Bottles of gin too, which I don't think we're supposed to talk about, but it's true. And
no, you can.
That's what people wanted and felt that they need at the time. And as we produced it in this region, it was deemed an essential item, and we could purchase it here. And it means that at least a few families who might have not been able to afford to put food on the table for that particular week, because it's been disastrous. Now, remember, this is in the really early stages, so there wasn't, if the wage subsidy was talked about, it was only new. Not everybody had got their head around what that meant, how that was going to help. It was all a bit scary, really. So to have the comfort that, yes, I can still get the sausages that I like from the butcher, and fresh crunchy apples that come off our trees here in the Wairarapa is what is important to me. I can still access that. When we went from level 4 to level 3, what was everyone talking about? Takeaways. Everyone wanted a takeaway. All of a sudden, those things that you were not able to have for a long period of time, it's the first thing that you want to have. So we launched a Love Local takeaway version, and this weekend we have a Buy Local version aimed at retailers able to deliver for Mother's Day. It really is just encouraging people to, if you're going to get a Mother's Day gift, rather than getting on one of the big chain store websites, why don't you get in contact with someone who's just down the road who might deliver a bunch of flowers for Mum if she lives in the region, or a box of chocolates, or a voucher for a day spa experience, or something like that, because that's going to help all of us in the long run. When we go from level 2, or I'm very the team and I at Destination Wairarapa have pretty much been working how many weeks have we going? 6 or 7 weeks, just all day, every day, pretty much 6, 7 days a week. Really making sure that we're working hard for our region. We think it's important to do so, and so our whole world is consumed by helping businesses basically keep hold of their employees, because we're pretty confident about the future and what it means here in the Wairarapa. When we go from level 3 to 2, which hopefully we'll find out 1 o'clock today, what that looks like. Yeah, and then eventually on Monday, I think we'll find out whether it's definitely happening or not. If we are able to have tourists back in the region, so visitors to our region, it's really, really important that the Wairarapa is open for business. And I can't stress that enough. We've been in hibernation or lockdown for a period of time. When people do venture over that hill, it's really important that they are the ones, they feel confident and comfortable and welcomed here when they arrive into our community, because if we don't welcome them back in the right way, they're just going to go up the other coast, and that's not going to be helpful for our economy and our locals and our families who work in this industry. As I've pointed out, really, really does affect all of us.
I guess one of the things that might make them think twice about going up the other coast or whatever is there has been some talk about regional differences, about opening up to a different degree depending on how that region's going. And of course, we've done very well for quite some time now with no active cases. So that might make a slight difference to us, do you think, economically?
I absolutely agree. And the other thing is that, so last year, visitors to the region injected $205 million into our economy. That's a lot of money. But the great thing is 44% of that spend came from Wellingtonians, 12% came from those who live in the Manawatu, and 4% equally from Hawke's Bay and Auckland. There's a few other smaller numbers there, but essentially only 13% came from international tourism or international visitors. So we're in a really, we were, because the market will change, we're in a very comfortable position because we have such a big market just over the hill. And we have been very successful at working through COVID and the cases here, and I can't remember how many days it's been since there was an active case. Actually, it's been many, many days. So we're seen as trusted. Yeah, we're seen as trusted. All the things that we sit here and appreciate over the last few weeks with the beautiful blue skies, and I can, I'm sitting here and the light's changing, and I apologise.
I know, it's fun watching.
Like I keep getting blinded by the sun, which is a good thing, really, because this is what's beautiful about this region, is there's beautiful big skies, blue clear skies and dark skies at night. I mean, the dark skies last night were spectacular. That moon.
I know, it's fabulous, isn't it, that we've got that view of the sky. We don't have the light pollution that the cities do.
No, and the Tararuas and the coastline, and it's clean, it's fresh, there's plenty of space to move around. And you imagine there's a few people who will be sitting in apartments not so far from here who desperately want to experience what we have. And they can do that. They can come over, they can stay in a little cottage, they can ride a bike, they can take a walk to the beach, they can have a nice glass of wine, they can have a beautiful meal, and they're close. They're close by. It's not... They can travel in their own bubble, and it's only an hour over the hill. It's not.
Yes, you've spoken about. Sorry if I occasionally sound rude with my interruptions. It's because there's a couple of seconds delay by the time it gets to you, during which time you've continued. But anyway, I was going to say that you've talked a bit about our resilience, I guess, and part of that is that we statistically don't depend to the same degree on international tourism. And I think that there's a change of habit already starting to happen amongst New Zealanders of let's explore our own country now. Let's not be hopping on a plane and going over to the other hemisphere. And that's given us a degree of resilience, that it hasn't been devastating for us because we've got domestic tourism is still very, very strong for us.
Yeah. For us as a region, we're incredibly lucky. For regions such as Queenstown, Rotorua, to some extent, they also have a good agricultural industry, which will help their economy. But the likes of Queenstown, the west coast of New Zealand, they're pretty much solely dependent on the tourist dollar, and most of that is an international tourist dollar currently. It's devastating for them. But as you say, we're not that reliant. And we also have a really strong agricultural culture and industry here, which, it's lovely that everybody's realising the importance again. It's never gone, but just being appreciative of what we can do and create and produce in this country, and particularly what we know we can produce in this region. It's nice to see the focus go back in the right place sometimes.
Yeah. Now, obviously, we've not been devastated by this, but our resilience has got something to do with the fact that people like yourselves at Destination Wairarapa are just not waiting for things to reopen. You're planning. There's a lot of work going on, really, to ensure that we hit the ground running.
Oh yeah, there are groups all over the Wairarapa at the moment who are focused on moving through the situation that we find ourselves in, and building better, perhaps you might want to call it. So I'm on a number of different groups representing tourists, or tourism, I should say, and everybody is focused on the one goal. And the thing I've noted in this is, Wairarapa has always been, for a long time, certainly for my generation, is seen as almost an extension of Wellington, like a suburb north of Wellington.
I know, but, dormitory suburb almost.
Yeah, we've been forced to actually claim our own place in the sun, I think. And it's a really nice place to be, to feel strong, to feel connected, to feel resilient, talking to people about just Wairarapa issues. I really hope this very local, very personal strength in our own region continues, because it's not something I've experienced, and I've been in and out of living in this region since I was a kid. So I've seen it go through a few ups and downs, I should say, but it's just really nice to hear people who used to come to the Wairarapa for a lifestyle. I would argue more recently, and certainly in the future to come, people are coming here to create a life for themselves, a life that is something special for them, and we as a community will benefit from that going forward. And it's been nice to see. It's quite exciting. I hope you're allowed to say that in this sort of environment, but I think the future is very bright for this region.
I agree with you, and I don't. Perhaps we've become more observant of that because of our isolation in this period. But I've noticed those changes that you've been talking about creeping in for some time now. A good example is Featherston, where so many people are commuters who go over to Wellington to do their jobs, and perhaps treated Featherston very much like a dormitory suburb for a long while. And now I get the strong feeling of a community of people committed to the fact that they live there. And I feel that is true right across the Wairarapa. And now here in this our level 4 and level 3 situation, we're re-examining how we live our lives. And I think Love Local is a perfect example of that kind of focus on where we are.
Yeah, it's looking through a purely Wairarapa lens, which is very rare that it's going to happen that way.
Mm. So when do we get to see you back? When will you be? I suppose we've got to wait till Monday to find out what the Prime Minister and Ashley Bloomfield have got to say about that.
Yeah, it'll be interesting what comes out. There has been talk of regions like ours that maybe they drop us down to 2 to see how it goes. But I mean, guys, it's all crystal ball gazing. What we do know for level 2 is that bars and restaurants and cafes will be able to open. They'll have some restrictions and regulations around them in terms of contact tracing and social distancing and that sort of thing. So there'll be certainly a buzz of activity which will happen maybe next week, maybe not, but it will happen for level 2. And I imagine there'll be a bit of anxiety too as we get let out. I think people will be feeling a little bit concerned. I understand level 2, the schools will probably go back. After being in lockdown for 6-7 weeks, it'll be be human nature not to feel a little hesitant to step out and be a little wary of people, I imagine.
Yeah, I think many of us will operate a kind of informal level 2.5. I know that I personally want to be more cautious than I'm allowed to be, because why not? Why not just be a little bit careful?
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean to say get out into the region and enjoy everything that it has to offer and keep those businesses going. I've been terribly worried about, especially new restaurants. You know, we've got Trocadero just down the corner from us. Those people only have been operating, the new owners, for a while. I thought this is going to hit them hard. But they've been agile, those businesses. They've as soon as they were able to do takeaways, there they were with a little table out front and things. And I've been quite impressed with the inventiveness. Yeah,
and just in our local cafes around here, just the support as well. Like people who wouldn't normally order lunch from a cafe, for example, are making a point of getting lunch from somebody around the local community every 2 or 3 days. I've heard stories of people who've gone and bought a coffee but paid for 20 of them, because that's how much they would have normally drunk over that period of time.
Oh, really?
There's been some really nice, lovely gestures shown to our cafes and restaurants and hospitality providers. And whenever you do buy local, just the sense of gratitude almost brings tears to your eyes. It's just really lovely. And it's absolutely, get out there, love local Wairarapa, buy local, shop local, be local. It's awesome. It's a really positive thing that's come out of a bad situation when you look at a silver lining.
And give local too, because directly underneath us is the Masterton Food Bank. So I can look out of the kitchen window here and see just how busy they are providing for people who've these circumstances have exaggerated their problems, and it's great that we are supporting them. There's plenty of produce. I see trucks stopping by loading the place up with produce, and it's great that perhaps some of the bigger suppliers are showing that generosity.
Yeah, it's really neat to see, and I hope it continues, because it's going to get worse before it's going to get better, unfortunately.
Yes, I think so. It's not just a as we go down each level, suddenly everything returns exactly to normal.
No,
the repercussions are with us.
Yeah, probably the tourist operators or tourism operators, they might have jumped onto the wage subsidy scheme one of the first, so their 12 weeks will be coming up towards the beginning of June. And after that, there's going to be job losses.
Yep.
I know that for a fact. And as more and more industries are impacted by what's happened, there'll continue to be job losses. And yes, we need to wrap a lovely warm embrace around our region even more, and continue to love local and love our locals in whatever way we can.
That sounds like the perfect message to end on, Anna, unless you feel there's something we've missed.
No, I think I've spoken enough.
Well, it's been great. It's been great chatting with you, and I've enjoyed watching you go from dark to light as the sun plays across your room.
This is actually the kids' playroom. I've been relegated to the playroom in the garage because everybody else has claimed all the comfy seats and the tables with their schoolwork and their work, and so I'm sitting. Actually, you can't see that I'm sitting amongst Barbie and Lego at the moment.
Right. Well, great to talk with you, and I look forward to when you can share our building space again, and we get to say good day and maybe have a coffee together.
Absolutely. Thanks, Michael. You take care.
Thanks. Bye, Anna.
Bye-bye.
So, yeah, Anna Nielsen from Destination Wairarapa, and that was a good... I particularly enjoyed getting the thorough rundown on what it is that Destination Wairarapa does, because we tend to have a kind of generic idea, but getting that explanation of what they mean to the economy of the region was really valuable. Now, look, I queued up some music, and I thought you might like to have a bit of a blast from the past. This is the Small Faces, who were my second to favourite group of the 60s, because I was a Beatles nut, but when it wasn't the Beatles, I loved the Small Faces. This is Tin Soldier, which is a great track. Right, that's the small faces. I'll stop that doing any more, because you never know. Right. Well, it's been good being with you this morning. Veronica will be out there in the office right now, I suppose, and we need to get the day started for all the other things that are involved in Access Radio. Sorry, I'm messing around trying to get my picture back on the screen for those of you who are watching on the telly. I can't. So tough. Yeah, we got stuff to do. So that's me. I'm off. Talk to you tomorrow.